All right, so now we're going to show you how to add a listing. So you've gotten your brand new listing and you can't wait to get it on the multiple listing system so that it can then be spread out throughout the entire internet. So the way it works is the multiple listing system, you upload it one time and then it's called syndication. It goes out from the MLS to a company called ListHub, and then ListHub sends it throughout the entire internet. It goes to Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, pretty much anywhere you can imagine. In some places you wouldn't even imagine, but it's the great thing about the multiple listing system. It's one place that you have to upload the information to, and then after that you pretty much set it and forget it. But so we go on here to add listing. I'll walk you through that a little slower. Go to menu, add listing. And for the purpose of this, I'm just going to pretend I'm selling my own personal home, and I'm going to show you how to get the information that you need to fill out the MLS input forms, and also just some tips and pointers on different things that you may not be self-evident. But first of all, I ask you for the house number, 21 Rabbit Trail, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, 39402. It's going to be in Lamar County. So once you got your address entered in, you hit next. So it geocodes the address. Sometimes the geocoded address doesn't show up correctly, and you actually have to physically move the cursor around and select the proper address. Ours is showing up correct, so we're going to click use this location. You just set your list price, say you're $300,000. List date. You'll go on here. So per the MLS rules, I believe you have 48 hours from the time that you sign your listing agreement to the time that it must be uploaded to the MLS. So keep that in mind. Or it's actually 48 hours from the effective date. So you can actually sign your listing agreement and have the effective date be sometime in the future. I usually do that actually. That way you have time to get your photographs, get all your ducks in a row. When you put your property on the MLS, you want it to present as best as possible. So you want to have everything, composed and, ready for showtime. You don't want to go do a half-baked, job and trying to go back to edit it, because typically the first, 2 or 3 days of the property in the market, that's when everybody's going to see it for the first time. It's going to have the most highest impact, and, that's really a pivotal time. So you can select on your listing agreement, you're signing it today. The effective date of the actual listing is, a week from now, to give you time to get that information together. But for the purpose of this, we're going to just say that the date is 4/6/22. Typically, you set your listing dates and your expiration dates in intervals of like 6 months. That's not a rule by any means. You can do a 1-month listing agreement, but typically we try to advise you to get at least 6 months. In years past, that was not an unreasonable amount of marketing time. Today, it seems like an eternity in today's market, but still, just as a rule of thumb, try to get 6 months, and that will give you adequate time to market the property. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. May have not counted that right, but you get the idea. Status active. I don't know why that's even a selection. It doesn't give you an option to do anything. Co-op broker. So this is what you're offering other agents, other brokerages as a co-op commission. So typically on a 6% commission, in Hattiesburg, for whatever reason, they don't split the commissions 50-50 like in most other places. In Hattiesburg, the norm is a 60-40 split. So the listing agent will keep 60%, which is 3.6%, and the buyer's agent will get 2.4%. That is typically what's expected. If you do a reduced rate commission, say you do a 5% commission, then it'll be a 2% co-op. I always try to do at least 2% on the co-op commission. Otherwise, you risk, other agents blackballing your listing, and they're not supposed to do that, but trust me, they will. Additional compensation. This is like if you're offering a selling bonus. You don't see those very much anymore, but back when the market wasn't on fire, sellers would offer, like if they had a house that's been on the market for a number of days, they'll offer a selling bonus. you can put on here a $1,000 selling bonus. Of course, this is something your seller has to be in agreement on, so make sure that's all understood. Variable commission. So say that you agree to list a home for 6%, but your seller asks that if you personally bring the buyer, would you do 4%? I probably would. So, that's up to you as an agent. We let you have a lot of, autonomy on how you want to decide to do your business. And, but yeah, so variable commission is just a yes or no question. The idea is that if it is a variable commission, that other agents need to be aware of it, because it does, change the math for them when they're presenting an offer, knowing that, their clients may be at a disadvantage because the seller may be paying a higher commission if they bring the buyer versus if you bring the buyer. So just yes or no. Exclusive agency. I don't even know why this is a question. In order to enter a listing onto the multiple listing system, you are required to have an exclusive agency agreement. So yes. Realtor ads, yes, that's just, I believe that's to do with how the listing is syndicated out throughout the web. So just put yes for that. First right of refusal. This is something that we don't see a terrible lot of, but say a common example, that you do see is, your seller has a property they're wanting to sell, and they have a prior agreement with a neighbor, and the neighbor has first right of refusal. They've had a written agreement that says that before they can sell it to anybody else, the neighbor has, the opportunity to purchase the property. I do not like first right of refusals. I advise my clients from engaging in them, but you do see them from time to time. But it's just a yes or no question. And it's a good question to ask your seller when you're listing the property. Make sure they don't have one of these in place. And if they do, you need to inform people of it. Sold in the past 3 years. That's just a question for your seller to answer. Foreclosure, yes or no. Lender short sale. So short sales are, not too common in our current market, but, in the past, if someone owed more on a house than it was worth and they were down on hard times, they could apply for a short sale. That's where the lender would agree to let them sell the property for less than what was owed. Don't see it often, but something, to be aware of if you do come across it. 16th section land. We do see this every now and then. So in the state of Mississippi, the school boards, every county assigned one section, which is 640 acres, to the school. And the purpose of that was to raise revenue for the school. They do timber harvesting. They also lease the property that people build homes on. So 16th section land, you never own the property. You have long-term leases that they typically run for 30 to 100 years. Some of them are shorter. That can be problematic for financing. So basically, you have your property taxes, and you also have an additional lease payment. It's just something to be aware of. You don't own the land the house sits on. You own the house. Me personally, I wouldn't purchase a home that was on 16th section land. Historically, they've been harder to sell due to financing issues. Lenders will not loan money on a house unless there's at least 30 years, I believe, of lease remaining. So a lot of times, say you buy a house or you're selling a house that has 20 years remaining on the lease agreement, you may have to go back to the school board and get an extension on the lease, which they'll usually cooperate with you on that, but it's just a pain in the butt. So area, that's simple enough. You can go in here and select your area. It's got a bunch of different options. If the area is not listed, you can always select other area, but for our purposes, we'll do Oak Grove. Type of property. Typically, you're selling single family, but self-explanatory. Pre-construction. So this is for like a new construction home that hasn't been finished completion yet. Realtor.com type, you again, single family. Lot dimensions. This can typically be found either on the LandGlide app, which I highly recommend, or the Onyx Hunt app. Other times you can put the actual dimensions of the property. which you can go on Delta Computer Systems, which I've already got pulled up here. I've got another video dedicated just to this. And you can, a lot of times you can search for the property and they'll have the acreage listed right up here. So you can put, acreage, which for whatever reason our personal home does not list the acreage. Alternatively, you can, let's see. Nope. You can go to the GIS maps. I don't know why it's not working tonight, but sometimes you just have to manually scroll in and find it. But if you locate the property and the parcel, it will, a lot of times it'll have the dimensions on here that you can pull off there for the lot dimensions. I'm not going to spend any more time. I've got a separate video showing how to use Delta. So anyhow, we'll just say it's a 100 by 200 foot lot. You could also say that it's a 1 acre MOL for more or less lot. You don't put lot, so 1 acre MOL. That's one option. If you do put 1 acre MOL or something like that, that say you get that off of the tax maps or you get that off of Landglide or Onyx, I like to put on here per whatever source you got it from. So per Delta Computer Systems or per Delta, that's typically fine. So MREC has this rule that as long as you as an agent cite the source of your information where you got the square footage or the acreage, as long as you cite the source, you are protected from any liability. So if it turns out, say, Landglide or Delta says it's 1 acre and somebody buys the property and come to find out it's actually half an acre, that's not your responsibility. As long as you cite your source, you have done your part at that point. School district will be in Oak Grove, but it has several different ones on here. If you don't have the one you're looking for, you can also select other, but we'll select Oak Grove. Homestead exemption, if you go watch the Delta Computer Systems video that I have, let's see, I'll pull it up here. If you go on here on the property taxes on Delta, you look under homestead code, regular homestead exemption is what we have. It's either going to say regular, it'll say none, which means the people that own the property have not filed for homestead exemption, or it will say over 65, which that exempts the first $70,000 in appraised value, or special exemption for disability. So that's your 3 options. Well, actually there's 4. There's no homestead. There it is. So there's 4 options. You can find that information right here on Delta Computer Systems. They have a little abbreviation for regular homestead exemption. Okay, you're built. Again, this is back on Delta. You go back to Delta, click on View Appraisal. You scroll down. This is the actual residence that we're looking at here. This is the appraisal that the county tax assessor has on our property. So you go in here, you click that, scroll down to the bottom, and you're built. There's the information you're looking for. So it was built in 2007. New complete dates, that's like if you have a new construction. It's not a required field, but say if you got a house that's under construction, you want to put in here the date of completion. If you got a builder name, you can put the builder's name. Again, it's not required. So then you'll put the bedrooms, bathrooms, half bath, approximate square footage. Again, you get this from Delta. You go back up to the appraisal report for the property. Listed right there is $23.95. Conversely, you could also just ask the seller, do you have an old appraisal, which will have the square footage. Sometimes the tax records can be off. So if you have an appraisal, I tend to prioritize that over, tax records. But we'll just use this. Ours is accurate, so we're going to go with that. It gives you a range, and then you can fine tune that in this box here. It says estimated square foot, $23.95. It asks if you're in the city limits. It's a yes or no question. How do you tell that? You go back to Delta. You go back to the tax record. This is your actual tax record here we got pulled up. You look on here, and it has the county taxes, which your taxes are three parts. There's county, city, and school. So if you don't have anything for the city amount, that means you are outside the city limits. So for that question, we are going to be a no. Subdivision. Again, you can just go through here. Our subdivision is called Summerwood. Select it. If it's not in the subdivision, which probably half the houses you come across will not be, you just search for NONE for none. So there's that. You can also pull the list up, type in letters, and it'll kind of jump to the correct name that you're looking for. Flood zone. To find your flood zone, you can go to FEMA's got a website. It's actually in your new agent startup tutorial. I've got a link in there. I'll have a separate video for that. It's hardly worth shooting a video for, but basically, you just punch in your address. It'll tell you yes or no if you're in a flood zone. So we'll mark no. Section, township, and range. So to get that, back to Delta Computer Systems. Section 30, 4 North Township, range 14 West. So 30, 4 North, 14 West. Legal description. Again, back to Delta. You use Delta a tremendous amount. You can tell that just how important this website is. Our legal description is found right here. Legal description, Lot 13, Summerwood, Phase 1. You just copy. Paste that on there. And this is actually a continuation of the legal. You can copy, paste all this. So helpful. We're not going to spend time doing that though. Total annual property taxes. So you go back to Delta again. $23.49.23. That's our total for city and or for the school and the county. What was it? $23.49.23. Okay, your tax year. It lists that on the tax receipt, tax year, right up here on top in red. So go back. Annual HOA fee. This is just a question. Typically, your seller will have to provide you with this when they're filling out the property condition disclosure statement. For whatever reason, we don't have one in our neighborhood. A lot of the neighborhoods do have them. So just ask your seller. Historical district, yes or no. Again, that's probably a question best left up to asking your seller. They'll probably be aware if they're in one. There's certain restrictions if you do live in a historical district as far as renovations, things like that. You have more permitting. You're typically going to find your historical districts are going to be downtown and the older neighborhoods, of course. Public remarks. This is where you write your flowery, wordy little write-up. Beautiful home, best home, yada yada yada. Write your little write-up about the property. If you want to have someone spell check your public remarks, Heather is really proficient at proofreading. Every write-up I ever do, I always send it to Heather via text. She'll skim it right quick for any grammatical mistakes, shoot it back to you. I think it's something that I would take advantage of. Otherwise, it looks like a fourth grader that did my public remarks. Private remarks. This is specific information you're wanting to share with other realtors, but not the general public. So, like, don't let the cat run out of the house, stuff like that. Call listing office to schedule showings, things of that nature that, you don't really want to share with the public, but, that you do want to convey to other agents and brokers. Directions. This used to be really important, back before GPSs. Typically, people just punch the address in. But say you got an address for a property that's not really, showing up well for online searches. Sometimes you want to go in here and give, specific driving directions to the property. But anyhow, next. All right. On the detail sheet, you have to select is it for sale or for sale and rent. You go in here and put your water supplier, gas supplier, which I have another video that shows you how to do that. I'll pull up the link here. This is psc.state.ms mapping. I would save that to my bookmarks just so you have it. But here you go. It tells you your electrical service area, your phone provider, gas service, sewer if you have it, and your water provider. So you can go back here. This isn't required information. You don't have to put it, but it's helpful. People like to know. So West Lamar, Pearl. Okay, you then just make some general selections about the property. 1 story. Let's see, approximate age of the property. Your construction. This is what kind of siding do you have? It's a brick veneer home. This is something you just kind of have to learn. You can ask your seller, of course, what kind of siding they have on their property. Hopefully they know. Asbestos siding, you find it like in the old houses downtown. It has like these little shake siding on those, kind of pretty common downtown. In Belgrass, you have your cement siding. That's like your new version of asbestos siding. It's just more environmentally friendly product. But that's your like painted houses that have, it looks like wood siding, but it's actually a concrete board. But yeah, anyhow. Your foundation type is a slab or a slab and raised combination, or just a raised foundation. You select your floor coverings. You've got carpet, you got wood, you got ceramic tile. Select your shingle type. So you're either going to have your composition, which are the 3-tab shingles. Those are going to be like the, if you're not familiar with it, you probably need to Google, 3-tab shingles. Versus architectural. That's the other common type. Architectural shingle is a higher quality shingle. It lasts for 30 to 40 years, whereas a composition shingle is typically rated for about 20 years. They also look a little better. They have more depth to them. It's just a thicker, nicer shingle. That's just something you'll have to get adapted at, learning to identify. Heat system. Typically in our area, you'll find heat pumps being the most common. This is a good question for your seller. Hopefully they'll know. Typically they'll know if it's, gas, heat, or electric. A lot of times people don't know the difference between a central electric heat and a heat pump. If you don't know the answer to this, I tend to err on the side of a central electric. Even heat pumps, they tend to have electric coil heating as backup heating. So you're going to answer this wrong. If you do mark heat pump and it's actually just central electric, you might have some seller that is really nitpicky, get upset with you. So, if you don't know the answer, central electric, the difference is a heat pump runs the air conditioner in reverse to draw out the coldness from the air. Whereas a central electric actually uses coils that are just like a big hair dryer. If it runs the problem with central electric is it uses a ton of electricity whereas a heat pump is much more energy efficient. The problem with heat pumps is they do not work whenever the temperatures get below like about 25 degrees. They freeze up, so you have to have central electric backup heating, which is just little strips inside your unit that back up whenever you get really cold. You have other options, of course, too: central gas, propane, fireplace inserts, all kinds of different things. Cooling systems. I always just mark Central Electric on this. I don't really know why they have heat pump as an option for cooling. That doesn't make a terrible lot of sense to me. I just err on the side of caution, mark Central Electric. Let's see, water system. You have to select, is it a community water or a city water? Who's providing the water to you? Is it a well? Sewer, we're on a septic system here at our property. A private sewer would be like if you live in a subdivision that has its own community sewer system inside the subdivision. An aerobic system is like, sometimes you have properties, they call treatment plants, where like if the soil is not of real good quality, they'll have to have these things called sewage treatment plants. They cost a little bit more money, and they treat the sewer water a little differently. So that's something your seller can answer. Typically, you find just standard septic systems, but we do see a good many of these treatment aerobic septic systems also. Let's see. There we go. Of course, my computer would freeze up. That'd be great. All right, specialty rooms, living dining combo, great room, sunroom, just go through here and pick out different attributes that your property may have. Kitchen features. I like to be kind of cautious on this, mark what's applicable. Make sure you get this right. And a range is like an all-in-one stove and oven combination. Cooktop is where you have just a standalone cooktop, typically with a built-in oven. That's actually what we have at our house. We don't have a range. We have a cooktop with a built-in oven. Dishwasher, exhaust fan. You can select that you have granite countertops. Refrigerator, whether or not it's staying, that's optional. Typically, the refrigerators, the seller takes the refrigerator. Don't know why that is, but you usually find that the stove is left because the mortgage companies require that there be a cooking source. Refrigerators, not so much. So, all right. So then you have to select your ceiling height, 9 foot, 10 foot. That's what we have in our house. Cathedral ceilings. So ceiling height is just something, if you've been in a number of houses, you'll just begin to recognize. Starting out, they have little laser measures. You can literally walk in there and stick it on the floor and shoot the distance up to the ceiling. Also, you can just ask your seller. Interior features, you've got all kinds of different options here. Walk-in closets, you get the idea. Energy efficient, none of this stuff is required. Of course, if it applies, select it. If not, move right along. It's all about time and efficiency. Garage, we got a double attached garage. Carport, nope, we got a garage, not a carport. Fenced yard, patio, it's pretty self-explanatory. Community amenities, our little neighborhood, smaller neighborhood, doesn't have a terrible lot. Does have underground utilities, does have street lights. Let's see, what else? You can also put other, see remarks. Leased items, common thing, propane tanks. We're actually have Blossman gas at our house for propane, so we have a leased propane tank. That's something your seller can answer. Security systems are a lot of times leased. I think we have one at our house. Let's see. Special ownership, bank foreclosure, corporate owned, lender short sale. With it being our personal home, it would be broker agent owned. So make sure that's selected if you're selling your personal property, of course. Let's see, lot description. You can just check this subdivision lot. You can select its level if that applies, or if it's on water, wooded. Again, it gives you the option of selecting your utility providers. I don't know why it asks you in 2 different places, but it does. Let's see. I think we're West Lamar. For sewage, it asks you for sewage company. This is a mandatory field, and we're on a septic, so you just put septic. Okay. Garbage and trash pickup. Lamar County, believe it or not, actually does free garbage pickup. I never have understood how or why they do this, but in Lamar County, you do not pay for trash pickup. The county provides it. Newspaper, cable TV providers. This is all just, extra stuff. If it applies, fill it out. It's not required. You're only required to do the parts that are in red. Showing instructions. You can have a lockbox typically on a property. You can have special instructions. You can have restricted days. All the kinds of selections you can make here. Possession typically happens at closing. The alternative would be if you have like a post-closing possession addendum where, like, say, the seller needs 2 weeks to move out after closing. You have to do a separate, addendum to your contract that states that. And if you want that to be known up front, you can put that in the remarks section, probably in the private remarks. That's probably the best place to do it. In documents, you select that you're uploading a seller's disclosure. Hit next. You can actually go through here and add rooms and put detailed measurements for individual rooms. That's nice. Most people don't do it. Next, you have to select one photo for the initial upload of the listing. So you just go on here. That's obviously not the picture, but you just select the photo of the property that you want to use and upload it. You can name it. And last is the broker distribution. These are opt-outs, so you can opt out of having it excluded from the internet. You can ask that the address be excluded. I never select any of these. Broker listing distribution options. You definitely want it to go to the list hub. Zillow, some people in our local MLS hate Zillow for numerous reasons. Some of those reasons are very valid. Zillow is kind of a monopoly of sorts, and they're slowly, putting their tentacles in all different aspects of the business. The way they're able to do that is by agents providing their properties, which gives Zillow content. So the idea being that some people like to opt out of Zillow. I think that's kind of a waste of time. Zillow is going to get the information one way or another. All you're doing is shortchanging your clients, in my opinion, but to each his own. All right, so once you're done with all that, your next step, which I'm not going to do, is to hit Add Listing. Once you add listing, it will officially go live. It'll tell you if there's any errors, which inevitably you'll miss something, and it'll have you correct the errors. If you're working on adding a listing, be sure to save incomplete listing as you're working on it. You can spend an hour, working on one of these things and have a computer crash or internet failure. Be sure to save it. But after you hit Add Listing, it will then show up. I'm leaving the page here. It will then show up under My Active Listings. So when you first add it, you're just going to have that one photo that you added. So to add additional photos and additional information, you'll come on here and you'll click this little down arrow out beside the MLS number and click Edit Listing. Then you go over to Media, and you can upload, additional photos of the property, which more photos the better. I highly recommend getting a professional photographer to do your interior photo shoots. It just makes a tremendous difference in your photo quality. And at the end of the day, it's a couple $100, and it makes a huge difference in how your property presents. Back to Edit Listing. You can also upload your documents. This is like where you upload your property condition disclosure statement. You just click on here, go to Add Document, choose the file, self-explanatory. Let's see, you can schedule an open house or a tour of homes. It's up to you. Open houses, they're not really what I consider necessary in this market, just because of the amount of activity. I don't know if they ever really add a terrible lot to anything, but they do help. I like to have buyers open houses sometimes, just as a way to get people in the door. You also meet people. You pick up clients. I have picked up clients at open houses, so I don't know why, but they do take time and effort. A lot of people don't want to, exert the energy, but starting out as a new agent, yeah, I do an open house. Get your name out there. Be present, make the most of it. So once you get an offer and a contract on the property, you can go in here and edit the status. You can pin it. That means the property is under contract. Let's get back to edit listing. You can extend it or expire it. So like if your listing is coming up and you need to, you get an extension from your seller, you're past your 6 months, you say you want to list it for another 3 months, you can extend out your expiration date. And finally, the best part is when you get to close it. When you come in here and close it, you will mark the close date, you'll mark the sales price, you'll select the type of financing that was used by the purchaser, and the sold square footage, which you get that from the lender, which will come from the appraisal. Typically is where you get your sold square footage, and you select appraiser. You can add the appraiser's name, but it's not necessary. The seller concession amount, so that's like say the seller paid $3,000 in closing cost, or the seller paid for a termite inspection, whatever the seller paid towards the closing cost. The selling member, so this is like another agent, a co-op agent. You just go in here and enter in their name, it'll pull them up. Sold non-MLS, that's typically no. Let's see. Foreclosure, no. Lender short sale, no. Post-closing remarks. I typically don't do this unless there was some kind of extenuating circumstance, like, if the house sold at a ridiculously low price, you may shed some light on, like, the roof needed replacing, or something was wrong with the property. You might want to add that. You might not. It's up to you. I tend to do it, more or less. If I sell something that's below value or unusually cheap, I like to add some context that hopefully the appraisers may take that into consideration for using it as a comparable sale, because you don't want to hurt other people's home values if you can avoid it, especially if there's a legitimate reason why something's sold for a below market price. So let's get out of here. But yeah, wow, okay, so we just covered how to add a new listing, how to edit a listing, and how to pin and close a listing. So this is your pretty much core function on adding property and doing what we do. If you have any questions, of course, always ask me, Heather, anybody around the office. We're always here to help. These things just take a little time to get used to, but hopefully this has been helpful. That'll be all.